Well, dang, talk about an ending there. Hello, interwebs, and welcome to my review of the 5th episode of Agatha All Along, this one titled Darkest Hour, Wake Thy Power. Before we get to the meat of the episode, obviously, as you can already tell if you are looking at the screen, you are not getting my lovely, lovely face today. That is because I am not home at the moment, and I don't want to film with a really crappy webcam on my laptop, so you're getting just my beautiful, sensual voice today. Apologies on that front, but I think this is a good episode to just do a voice one for because it was a really short one this week, only I think about 25 minutes compared to the more leading into 40 minutes that we've been getting. I don't think it's ever fully hit 40 minutes, but still on the shorter end here. But wow, does this one pack a punch. I think the biggest thing I can say about this episode is that it seems like it is following the same exact formula that we've set up for the past 2 episodes, which is, start off in the sort of woodsy area, then reach the trial. They do the trial, and then we get a little bit afterwards, and then we move on from there. And this episode follows that to a T, and yeah, it seems to raise the stakes and raise the speed of that in a really kind of fun way, as well as setting us up for next episode, things to hopefully entirely shift and changing the status quo. I'll leave it there for now in case you haven't watched the episode, but we will get into spoilers in just a minute here, so just know that going up. But getting into the nitty-gritty, just with that formula, I've been liking it, enjoying it, but I'm glad that it's shifting a little bit, hopefully next episode, because I feel like this is the highest stakes you could take it, because we start off right away with them on the run from the hive mind of witches of the kids of the witches that Agatha killed, which I like that as an idea, sort of like Borg witch concept. I also just like the dynamic of all of these characters at this point. They bounce off of each other really quickly, really well, with like the character that Aubrey Plaza's character. I don't want to spoil who that character is because I think I know who it is. I won't spoil for you if you don't know what it is. I'll sort of talk about that at the end. I'll sort of give a spoiler warning for that bit. But just her defending Agatha and everyone else being like, oh God, it's her fault. Like, that dynamic is really, really fun. And it plays into, again, later on the episode. I love the structure of TV where we get like a mini arc throughout the episode. And yeah, they were on the run from the witches. I love the broom stuff. Like the idea is like, oh, it's just, it's a symbol of women's subjugation. Just like this idea of like, oh, they're progressive witches. So they hate the broomstick, but they kind of have to use it. I also like the idea that they have to give each other their brooms. It has to be something that they share amongst each other. That sort of like giving friendship, all for one and one for all idea that again plays up in the theme of this episode. Again, themes within a singular episode, not just across the season. Who would have thought? Because then we do get to our 80s set in Agatha's house, and Agatha's trial, I should say, which, by the way, the set design on those houses, always fan-freaking-tastic. They're doing a great job there. And our main theme here is Agatha needing to be punished? Are they willing to sacrifice one for the rest of them? Are they really all for one and one for all? Which I think is a really great concept in bringing in Agatha's mother to do that, and you get to see the trauma of Agatha's mom, like just viewing her as evil from birth. I mean, hell, that's not queer vibes all the way. I don't know what else to tell you. Like, that is definitely intended to be a queer metaphor of a parent saying, you were born evil, I should have killed you then. As a trans person, as a queer person who has seen parents view queer kids that way, I definitely get that vibe. And you can see why Agatha wanted to kill her entire coven, because they didn't view her as a person. I also love speaking of queerness, there's like these little looks that Agatha gives to Aubrey Plaza's character throughout the episode, like when they're flying on the brooms and things like that. You can kind of get the sapphic vibes going on pretty strong here. I'm hoping they make it more explicit and don't just tease around it, but it's certainly, the underlyingness is there, but I'm still like, Disney, if there was any other show, I'd be fine with it, but a Disney Marvel show that has danced around queerness for so long, and I understand, I don't blame the showrunners for this, I blame Kevin Feige in the studio for this, and Disney for this, it needs to be more explicit about it. So I'm liking it, but sure as hell, by the end of the show, it better make this damn explicit, because there's definitely vibes between the two of those, of them being exes who are dealing with stuff. We get that repeatedly with Aubrey Plaza's character, like being willing to kill her, which I'll talk about later on, but also wanting to defend her numerous points in the episode. So I was just sort of like, oh, okay. So again, knowing what we know about Aubrey Plaza's character, if you know the spoilers, we'll get there. That's just an interesting dynamic to play with their character and that sort of sapphic romance there. But ultimately, I also love the little Mrs. Hart reference. I was like, oh, maybe we're getting Mrs. Hart here. But I don't think that that's going to be, that obviously wasn't the case. It was more of a, do we sacrifice Agatha? And them kind of jumping on the bandwagon because Agatha's been kind of a dick, and Teen's sort of stepping up to try and save her, and Alice trying to save her. And I think that makes sense because Teen's the ones that's kind of been more on Alice's side. And also, Alice has definitely been the one that has benefited the most already from this journey. She got to learn about her mother, so she's sort of not owes Agatha, but I think is probably a slightly more endeared to the situation that they're in than the rest of the coven is. So makes sense that she would be the one to jump in there. And obviously, he gets killed for it. So now we have 2 members of the Coven down, and I'm wondering if ultimately, this is just me speculating, what the end thing of the season is going to be is Agatha should be was thinking about wishing for power, because Teen sort of says, that's all you want, you just want power. But at the end of the day, she's going to choose the friends that she made along the way and not power. And it's about creating a community, not seeking power, which is a theme, pretty overt, sort of standard theme, but I'm definitely here for it, and it fits this show very well, and it fits the queer vibes of this show really well, forming a queer community of people. So I think that that's ultimately she's going to choose to resurrect Mrs. Hart and Alice and everyone who dies by the end of the season. I think that's sort of where this is headed. In kind of an obvious way, but I don't, just because something's obvious doesn't mean it can't be good or work pretty well, and I think the show is landing that nicely. And then we get to the end of the episode, where I don't know if it's officially revealed. I'll save it for spoiler bit just in case for one more week if people don't know who Agatha is referring to at the end there when she says, oh, your mother, you're just like your mother. So if you still haven't guessed it by the end of the week, by the end of next week, we'll talk more openly about it next week. But to talk about that end scene, I am going to give a big spoiler warning here. I'm going to talk about not only the Teen's character, but also Aubrey Plaza's character. So if you have not heard of either of those, you can jump off here. Full spoiler warning going forward. All right, so let's just start with Teen. Very clearly seems like he's being announced as Wiccan here. I mean, his head, it looks like the Scarlet Witch outfit. I think they're really just I like that they don't make it explicit, but you can kind of visually get the vibe of it. So maybe most people will get it, like 90% of people will get it. Maybe the 10% that don't will learn next week. But I think that works really well. Good reveal of who he is. And sort of seems like maybe he's actually a villain. Maybe he's been fucking with them this entire time. So that's an interesting idea. I still have trans vibes from him, in the sense that like, oh, he wants to be part of the Coven and all that jazz. So like still some trans egg vibes going from Wiccan there. But yeah, good strong reveal at the end there. It was interesting to see Agatha sort of like taunt him at the end and diminish him at the end. But I think that sort of comes down to her trauma at the situation. So it was it seemed a little bit forced to get Agatha to that point to like try to attack, like just diminish him and him sort of going at her to try to get us to that point. But it wasn't too much of a stretch, but a little bit of a stretch for me. The other element of this, just to mention, Aubrey Plaza being Death. It's very clear that she wants to be with Agatha, and I like this idea of like she wants to kill Agatha, not to like be done with Agatha, but so that Agatha will be forced to join her and be with her. So when she's like saying, oh, we can slit her throat, that's not her saying punish Agatha. It's like, oh, well, I can have her now. This will be a good way to just get what I want right away. And I sort of like that as just a vibe, but like I think that's just an interesting dynamic of like, I want to kill you so I can be with you. It's just kind of fun just playing up here. That was really everything I had. Like I said, shorter episode this week, not much to say. Excited for next week though, and the queer vibes of the show are great, but Disney needs to be more explicit. What do you think about my review, and what are your thoughts on the episode? I'd love to hear all that down below, and I will talk to y'all later.